Welcome. This video is going to talk about the early ideas or the early theories on atomic theory or on atoms. And atomic theory is just a fancy name for our ideas about atoms. And specifically, we're going to be looking at what an atom looks like or its structure. So the Greek philosophers were the forerunners to today's scientists. So these fellows were around like in 400, 500 BC. And they were driven purely by their intellect and life experiences, but they ran very few controlled experiments, had very little equipment, so it was really just their speculation about how things worked. And many of them believed that matter was formed of four elements: air, earth, fire, and water. And they believed that matter could be endlessly divided into smaller and smaller units. They didn't have any concept of the idea of an atom, that eventually you'd reach the smallest unit that you could get. So neither of these ideas is currently believed to be true, but they were important because it did get people thinking about what's around them, and it gave people, ideas to go off of and things to prove as correct or incorrect. Democritus, however, was one fellow back in 400 BC who was way ahead of his time because he was the first to think that everything is made of one small unit, that eventually you reached a smallest unit. So he was the first to come up with the idea of atoms, or what he called atomos, which means that which can't be split. So he really originated this idea of atomic theory. So he obviously didn't believe that things could be infinitely divided. He also thought that matter could not be created or destroyed. And the biggest things holding him back was that there simply was not equipment to prove his idea. And he had some strong opponents like Aristotle who really promoted their four-element idea. So his ideas remained suppressed or unknown for around 2,000 years. And before we look at how they advanced 2,000 years later, I just want to look at a quick summary of what his theory was. He thought matter has empty space through which the atoms move, that atoms are solid, homogeneous, that means they're the same throughout, indivisible or can't be divided, and indestructible. And he thought different kinds of atoms differ in size and shape, and changes in matter result from changes in the groupings of the atoms, not changes to the atom themselves. And these are things that we pretty much currently believe, so that was amazing. With no equipment, he really nailed it way back then. So finally in the 1800s, a fellow named John Dalton started looking at Democritus's ideas and realized he agreed with everything except the empty space idea. And he had the equipment available to prove his ideas, so he refined a few of Democritus' ideas, and his basic theory said that same thing as Democritus, except that different kinds of atoms differ in size and shape, and also in their mass and chemical properties, so he just kind of added on to it, and that atoms get regrouped in a reaction because atoms are separated and then recombined or rearranged. So he started having this idea of some kind of chemical change going on. He also said different atoms combine in simple whole number ratios to form compounds. So really not necessarily anything different from what Democritus had thought, but just kind of expanded on his idea. So modern atomic theory still includes most of Democritus's and Dalton's ideas, with a few more details added as our equipment has improved. In fact, we now have scientific equipment capable of proving that atoms really do exist. We use a special microscope, an STM or scanning tunneling microscope, that can create images of atoms for us. So we now have a definition or an idea of what this atom is. And atoms are defined as the smallest particle of an element that still retains the property of that element.